Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Humphrey, the Executive Director at the EU-ASEAN Business Council. Welcome to this webinar today, where we're looking at the future of agriculture in Southeast Asia and the lessons that can be learned from Sri Lanka. We will soon have a presentation looking at what happened in Sri Lanka on their ban of chemical pesticides and fertilizers in the agricultural industry and the impact that it had. But before that, we'll have some opening remarks from one of our panelists today, which is Dr. Glenn Gregorio, who's Director of the Southeast Asia Regional Centre for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture. And then we'll finish off then with a discussion. You can see on your screens now, the rest of my panel, which other than Dr. Glenn, includes Chris Argent, who's the Head of Business Sustainability Asia Pacific at Syngenta, Mr. Adriel Dave A.D. Alvarez, who's a farmer from the Philippines and a member of the Global Farmer Network, and Dr. Chu Phuc Tim, who is Vice Dean, Associate Professor at the National University of Singapore. Good morning, gentlemen, to all of you. As I said, we're going to be looking at the issues that happened in Sri Lanka and how they might have a read across to Southeast Asia. For those of you that do not know, back in April 2021, the Sri Lankan government imposed a ban on the import and use of agri-chemicals to promote increased use of organic inputs in agriculture. However, it had an adverse impact on agricultural production in the country. A country that used to be self-sufficient in rice ended up having to import rice, and the government had to spend millions of dollars in terms of support for farmers in the country as well. With that, I think I'll hand the reins, please, to Dr. Glenn for his opening remarks and welcome message. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, and a pleasant Monday morning from Circa headquarters here at the Spatial Science and Nature City of Los Baños in the Philippines. I can see here that one of our co-panelists is Dr. Chu Phuc Tim, the Circa's governing board member. So I have to be careful of what I'll be saying. Also, Ad Alvarez is here, my FB friend and a very productive farmer in the Philippines. I may call him the eggplant king of the Philippine farms. And then, of course, Mr. Chris Argent of Syngenta will be my new friend starting now. Being a farmer, a scientist, an agripreneur, a professor, and of course, as I'm leading temporarily as a director of Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, I often asked to give an outlook of agriculture in the Philippines and in the region. And interestingly, the title of our discussion today is The Future of Agriculture in Southeast Asia, a story from Sri Lanka. So we have a lot of learnings from there. What does the future hold for agriculture in this part of the world? We have witnessed how the recent pandemic and the geopolitical tensions have changed the landscape of the agri-food sector. More than increasing the supply to ensure food security, we are now faced with the challenge of producing nutritious food in an environmentally sustainable manner. This is the future of food. This is the future of agriculture. Actually, I am tempted to share our new program on carbon-wise rice-based farming system, maybe in our future discussion. And each of us can help predict the future by creating or co-creating it. We must take on the challenge to create enabling environment to accelerate transformation through agricultural innovation. This entails academe, industry, government interconnectivity, because it is through strategic partnership and learning from each other that we can create a future of agriculture for everyone here in Southeast Asia and beyond. Let me take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to our longtime partner, CropLife Asia, and to the European Union, ASEAN Business Council for making this panel discussion webinar possible. I am confident that the insight that will be shared among our panelists today will be useful as we navigate the future of agriculture in the region we call home. I would like to remind us all the saying that it takes a wise man to learn from his own mistakes, but even wiser man learn from mistakes of others. I would like to say also the heartbeat of the country can be seen in the faces of the farmers. If we have a happy farmer, we are food secure country. So let's make our farmer happy. Again, God bless our discussion. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Dr. Glenn. Right, we will now move on. We'll have a presentation now looking at what happened in Sri Lanka and the implications for elsewhere. This will help frame our discussion, which will then follow on afterwards. So if we could perhaps play the presentation, please.
Today, I would like to share with you the insights from the impact assessment study of 2021 ban on conventional pesticides and fertilizers in Sri Lanka. As an introduction, I would like to share with you the reasons for conducting this study. In April 2021, the Sri Lankan government imposed a ban on the import and the use of conventional agricultural inputs and actively promote the use of organic inputs in national agriculture. This move contributed to a reduction in crop yield and led to price surge of food in the country. This, compounded by other challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic, has further worsened Sri Lanka economy in the mid-2021. Later that year, the government partially reversed the policy and allowed for imports of chemical inputs for critical export crops. However, subsidies for chemical fertilizer were not reinstated. Hence, the price of food had remained high and short supply, and yield of major crops such as rice has also not recovered. Given these dirt circumstances, there was also a concern that such development would lead to an increase in the usage of illegal pesticide. Kinetic, at the request of and through the findings of CropLife, conducted an independent assessment on the impact of the lack of chemical pesticides and fertilizers nationally on the farming community, the production of key crops, and changes in the extent of illegal pesticide usage in the view of the shifting regulatory and policy landscape. So in terms of our study, the research objective included three key components: capture farmers' experience and perception of changes in farming due to chemical ban, find out farmers' perception of and attitudes towards organic and chemical fertilizers, and third, assess farmers' knowledge and experience and interest on illegal pesticides. We conducted the study nationwide and included 6 crops such as rice, maize, tea, upcountry vegetable, low-country vegetable, and floriculture. We also included a good mix of small and mid-sized farm, and all are commercially viable farmers. They are all main decision makers in their farm, including their choice of selection of different farm inputs such as seed, fertilizer, agrochemicals, labor, and water. Across the board, our farmers have more than 10 years of crop farming experiences with an average age of 47 years old. We also have roughly 2/3 of male farmers and 1/3 of female farmers. We conducted the study, or the fieldwork or data collection was done in May to July 2022, and we conducted a one-to-one personal interview, computer assist. We asked the farmers to focus on Maha season 2021, which ended in April/May 2022. Now let's get into the findings of the study. First, let's find out farmers' challenges after the government imposed the ban on conventional pesticides and fertilizers. Almost all farmers declared that they had trouble in purchasing chemical pesticides and fertilizer solution after the ban. 99% of farmers experienced challenges in purchasing chemical pesticides, and 98% of farmers experienced challenges in purchasing chemical fertilizers. Even if they were able to purchase chemical solutions, these products were sold with a markup price and very expensive, or they are not able to purchase the product they want or commonly use. They will need to choose other brands or alternative. We also have about 50% of farmers that we interview say that if they want to buy the chemical solutions that they want, they will need to search and purchase these products from multiple outlets, which is relatively troublesome and time consuming. In dealing with the limited access of chemical solution because of the ban, farmer has taken few steps and action in the crop farming. 4 in 5 farmers had to change the way they farm due to chemical ban. The most common one seems to be the reduction of dose rate of the chemical solution. Half of the farmer has claimed that they had to lower the dose rate to control pests in their crop. For those who have reduced the dose rate, 7 out of 10 of them had to reduce the dose rate as much as 30% or more versus the regular dose rate. The second option they have chosen is to reduce the application frequency. So we have almost 2 in 5 farmers who had to reduce application frequency. The reduction in frequency of chemical pesticide application can be as high as 8 times in floriculture to at least 1 to 2 times in other crops, including rice and maize. The third solution that farmer has adopted due to the ban has been changing in the application timing. And for those who did change their application timing, 7 out of 10 farmers opt to postpone the timing of application, which means they had to delay the usual timeline. We also found that at least 1 in 4 farmer has to choose to use less number of chemical pesticides. Insecticide seems to be the most obvious option for those who choose to reduce the number of product use, as 4 in 5 of them reduced the number of insecticide product use, and at least 2 to 3 of them had to reduce either an herbicide or fungicide. Of course, with the changes in pesticide application and reduction of dose rate and number of product used, we can expect some changes in infestation level of weeds, insects, and disease. By and large, farmer experience increase in these challenges, weeds, insects, and disease infestation. Higher infestation of weeds seem to be the most common, but the increase of insects and diseases is also not far behind. We have observed that 8 out of 10 farmers has claimed that they are experiencing higher infestation of weed, whereas we got 7 in 10 farmers say that they have experienced higher infestation in insects and also disease. We have found that vegetables, including both upland and lowland vegetables, floriculture, rice, and maize all face the same issue. As farmers has experienced at least one crop season with less or no chemical solution, we were also keen to get their assessment on how had the ban impact their cost of production and also their productivity. We learned that 88% of farmers have experienced increased in crop production because of the chemical ban, right? Or for those who did experience increase in spending of agrochemical, their increase could be as high as 67%. We also found that almost every farmer has actually experienced lower yield, and the loss of yield could be as high as 54%. Because of the lack of yield or the increase or the lower productivity, expectedly farmer can sell their produce at a higher price, especially grain crops such as rice and maize, and lower country vegetable such as brinjal, chili, cucumber, and okra. However, the higher price does not seem to be able to offset their loss, as the increase in price is about 45%, which is somewhat lower than what they have lost in yield and higher spending on crop production. We also try to check with the farmers on their consideration on how they deal with pests, weeds, and diseases in the event conventional pesticide continue to be banned in 2022 and beyond. Their answers are: 1 in 4 farmers say that they will switch to organic solution completely or may quit farming or switch to other crops that require fewer chemical solutions. 2/3 of farmers will continue to use chemical pesticide. Among those who will continue to use chemical pesticide, most of them, which is shown here as 53%, would have no choice but to use both chemical and organic pesticide. They too will continue to use the current solution or action in managing the lack of chemical solution in the market, which is reduce the dose rate, reduce the application frequency, postpone application timing, and potentially also opt to use illegal pesticides. We asked farmers to also give us the benefits and also the limitation of organic versus chemical solution. From our interview, farmer has a very clear idea or vision on the benefit and limitation of both organic and chemical solutions for crops. Organic solutions are indeed safer to applicators and the environment and also beneficials. However, when it comes related to efficacy, convenience, value for money, the choice seems to be for chemical solution. Farmer professed that chemical solution is indeed more superior in terms of control level of either weeds or insects or diseases, has faster speed of control, easier to use, and more cost effective or value for money. Many also claim that chemical solutions are relatively safe if used correctly based on professional recommendations. Now let's look at farmers' perception and view related to illegal pesticides. From our interview, we have almost 9 out of 10 farmers who claim that they have never used illegal or non-registered pesticides. Okay? And because this group of farmers has never used illegal or non-registered pesticide, when we ask them how likely are they to opt to use illegal pesticide in 2022 season, we have less than average, using a 5-point scale, where 5 is very likely to use and 1 is very unlikely to use. Farmers have gave us a rating of 1.7, which is below average of the likelihood of them to use illegal pesticides. On the other side of the picture, where we have roughly about 12% of farmers who had experienced using illegal pesticide in the past. For these farmers, the reason why they choose to use illegal pesticide includes limited or no access to genuine product, recommendation from retailers or their fellow farmers, and they also found that with illegal pesticides, they are getting better value for money because they say it's cheaper, yet the performance of the product is similar to genuine product. We also found that farmers are relatively satisfied using a 5-point scale. They have gave 2.6 score for level of satisfaction with illegal pesticides. And because this group of farmers has experienced illegal pesticide, when we ask them how likely are they to opt for illegal pesticides in the coming season, we get above the average rating, whereby 5 is extremely likely and 1 is extremely unlikely. Farmer gave a rating of 3, which is above average in likelihood to use illegal pesticides in 2022 season and beyond. As a summary, I'd like to sort of conclude all the key points that I have just elaborated. We have almost all farmers encounter difficulty in purchasing chemical pesticides and fertilizers in MAHA 2021. 75% of farmers are still keen to use chemical pesticide or at least co-mix chemical pesticides with organic solutions. The two most common practice due to the challenge of getting chemical or lack of chemical pesticide are reduce dose rate and reduce application frequency. We also found that because of the ban or reduction in the use of chemical pesticide, farmer has experienced higher infestation of weeds, insects, and diseases. Because of the ban or more difficult to obtain chemical pesticide, farmers have shared with us that they spend at least 67% higher on input or cost of crop production. They had experienced reduction of yield as high as 54%, and they have actually able to sell the crop, their produce or their crop at a higher price, and the price increase is roughly about 45%. However, although they are able to sell a higher price, many of them claim that they still are not able to offset the adverse impact of higher farm inputs and lower yield. We also have 1 in 5 farmers who would consider adopting illegal pesticide if the ban persists. And we also found that 1 in 4 farmers might consider quitting farming if the ban of chemical pesticide continue in the 2022 season. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that presentation, for giving us the background of what happened in Sri Lanka. We now move into our panel discussion on topic, the future of agriculture in Southeast Asia and the lessons that we can learn from Sri Lanka. I won't reintroduce the panel. They've been introduced to you at the beginning of this webinar. You can see them all on your screen now. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. If anybody has questions they want to raise, please drop them into the Q&A and I'll do my level best to get round to them over the course of the discussion over the next 40 minutes or so. Okay, we're going to start off. I'm going to ask Dr. Chu, first of all, perhaps you could just give us a breakdown of what really happened in Sri Lanka, the reasons why the government went down the route of trying to go totally organic, and what it actually then meant for the industry there.
Thank you, Chris. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Now, I think as with anything, it is not a particular single reason why people decide to go down or why governments decide to go down a particular path. You can all hear that they decided this because, oh, pesticides are dangerous, people are overusing it, it's bad for the environment. But really, if you look closely what has happened, there were already a lot of economic pressures. It is not just about COVID. It wasn't just about pandemic and of course then Ukraine situation and so forth. Actually, even before that, Sri Lanka was actually going through quite a difficult time. We forgot actually that just in 2019, they had a terrorist attack. They were dependent on tourism, but with that, tourism was affected. And all that caused a snowball effect on the country eventually. Now, of course, eventually things came to a tailspin with pandemic and everything happening. We then had the government making a very surprising decision to ban pesticides and the rest of these things. And you already saw what happened. So in very short summary, this was really the situation that they were faced at that point of time. They were already having a difficult time, and this is made worse with a decision that really was, I feel, maybe a little disconnected to what was happening on the ground. But let me not continue on to hog the show, but we can have a discussion here about this. Chris.
Thanks, Dr. Chu. Dr. Glenn Gregorio, looking globally, of course, there's been increasing movement towards having more organic farming. doing things differently to the way we currently do it. A lot of that has been driven by sustainability concerns, looking after the environment. Where do you see this trend going? And if it continues on, what will be the impacts for farming here in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, the trend, even in the Philippines, is going organic. They romanticize organic farming, which is good, no chemicals. But let's always, we are always science-based and evidence-based. So we have to have evidence-based result is needed to show the reality, not only the testimonial. So we pursue more research and applications of these two issues on, they call it conventional and the organic. And also I have my own farm. I also have an organic as an option, and the combination of the two farming approaches, which I find it very useful. So we will be having the same risk of that of Sri Lanka if we go with less production, more illegal pesticides will be employed, will be going to food crisis as we are experiencing right now. So I think the most important is give the farmers access to alternative options and its consequences also. And of course, we have to incentivize or using more environmentally friendly and low carbon footprint technology. So that's what we learn from this one. So we need a smooth, good, seamless transition because this organic and even farming itself is knowledge intensive. So we need transformative innovation to make those, we have to make slow on this one. All the transformative information, innovation, conceptual, policy, technological, even institutional innovation should be there. That's my take. So we have to see both worlds, the science of it, and apply it. For me, it's the combination that helps really. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. I'll come to Chris Argent now. Chris, often agri-chemicals are vilified. People don't like using them. People don't like to eat food that's been grown using agri-chemicals. But what is the case for using them, particularly for pesticides in the case of Syngenta? And how can we make sure that they're used in a wise and sensible way?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And let me start by echoing the thanks to my fellow panelists and yourself for hosting this very important discussion. I'm going to start answering that question by jumping up 30,000 feet, if I may. I think if you look at some of the big challenges the world is facing at the moment, two of the most critical are food security. How do we feed a growing population by using less land rather than more? And also, how do we deal with the growing threat of climate change, which we are already seeing in Asia Pacific, having impacts on farmers in terms of extreme weather conditions. In the Philippines, typhoons are a regular occurrence, but seem to be getting a little more regular. In Pakistan recently, we had one of the longest and hottest heat waves, followed almost immediately by devastating floods. So these changes in extreme weather are having a tremendous impact on farmers' ability to do what they do best, which is grow food for the benefit of all. And so coming more specifically to your question, Chris, productivity, yield, getting more nutritious, safely grown food from the same or less land is key to this problem, to solving these two macro challenges, or at least contributing towards a solution to that. And crop protection products, the right use of the right product at the right time, the data clearly shows the yield benefits that farmers enjoy from those practices. Getting more from less, being able to grow more food to feed more people with less impact on the environment. And at Syngenta, continually focusing on how do we improve our portfolio to deliver better outcomes, both for farmers, but also to encourage better environmental outcomes from agriculture in general. Agriculture contributes, depending on your source, somewhere between 17 to 28% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And without oversimplifying what is a very complex problem, the most fundamental way that we in the agricultural and food value chain industry can help with that problem is to increase yields, is to use the right product in the right way to increase yields so that we can continue to feed a growing population. And I really liked the point that Dr. Gregorio made, which is it's about options. I'm not a farmer. I'm delighted that we have two farmers on this panel. But what farmers tell me is I want the options to help me grow the best possible food I can, best quality, best yield, best value for my livelihood, my community's livelihood, and to reduce the impact that agriculture has on the environment. So it's not an either or. It's providing farmers with a range of tools, a range of options to maximize what they do best, which is grow food for the benefit of all of us. That's my first response to that question, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. AD, will come to you as one of our heroes, the people that grow things so that people like me can be overweight and too fat, perhaps, in my case. If in the Philippines, where you are, the government would come out with a ban on using agri-chemicals like in Sri Lanka, what would that mean for you and your farm and your production and your livelihood?
If first and foremost, Chris, I would like to thank everybody for having a farmer sit on this panel. It is really a privilege. I would not claim that I speak for every farmer, but I would try to speak as a farmer. And as a member of the Global Farmer Network, we do exchange of experiences and knowledge all over the world, talking about our struggles, talking about what we are talking about now. And we try to make a consensus observation and compare our notes. So what I'm going to share to you is not necessarily my personal experience, but the similar struggle that all of us as farmers are coming from. Earlier, before I get back to your question, Chris, I would just like to jump into Dr. Chu's question that there is a disconnect between policy and frontline producers. I'm glad we're not doing that now here in this panel because we have two farmers in the group. And I like to say this, in the Global Farmer Network, we always say farmers should be included in all discussions. Whether we are a silent participant, we are an observer, or we can just share our struggle, because whatever you design, whatever policies you make will be something that we will be implementing. Whether we like it or not. But in the end of the day, whatever policies, whoever policymaker and whatever technology design will be out there, we will contextualize that in our immediate situation, whether it's the size of land or what kind of land, climate, etc. So it is very crucial that you keep asking the farmers what they need. And different contexts, different places they would have a different answer. In the case of Sri Lanka, I would say a quick answer to what happened. They should have included the farmer before they decided to impose a ban. And that could have been a crucial point where they can get the context on how it would affect their farmers. And maybe they did, I don't know, but it's a decision. I'm not saying they did a bad decision, but we can just look at the aftermath of that decision and guess what caused that thing. Now, going to your specific question, Chris, about the Philippines. If we have a good agroecology, whatever changes in certain things like the policy, like a pesticide ban, if we have a good agroecology, which is embedded in a good economy, like in the Western countries, there would be no drastic effect on how we produce food. Well, we've faced typhoon many times. As farmers, we've faced infestation, drought, etc. Those are far worse than policy changes, really, because policy changes we can still catch up and say, oh, we don't like that. We could put a protest in other countries. They do. But when bad weather comes, where do we go for protest? So we just have to adapt. And we can only survive. There are good agroecology. And there are 4 components of that, which is crop insurance, access to capital, protection to frontline producers. So those play a crucial part on how we produce food. And if we're going to just try to survive on our own and produce our food for ourselves, there will be a lot of people hungry. But we do this all the time so that others could do something else. So that's my take on your question, whether how a ban could affect us in the Philippines. So long as we have good policies and an agroecology surrounding us, we will be okay.
Thank you. Actually, 100% agree with you. There is a need to make sure that farmers like yourselves are involved in any policy debates going forward. I mean, you are, after all, key for all of us, and your inputs on helping to alleviate things like rural poverty and improve food security and improve production and the nutritional value of food is, of course, is a vital input. A question, I think, which I will pose to several of you, and then Dr. Chupas can answer it first, but others please jump in. There have been concerns, of course, over the years about overuse of agri-chemicals in the farming sector, causing pollution problems, causing health and food safety issues as well. How can it be better regulated? Is it purely coming from government, or do firms like Syngenta, for instance, need to play a bigger role in educating farmers?
Let me just jump in straight away to say that actually this is an ecosystem issue. And I like the perspective that AD gave. Actually, it is not just the role of governments, it's not just the roles of companies like Syngenta, but it's all of us coming together. There are multiple components of things when we need to deal with this. Firstly, there's a market force of availability and pricing. Secondly, there is also education. It's not something that you just say, here, this is available, and then you just go ahead, which is exactly why we have a problem in the first place. The unregulated use. I mean, in pharmaceuticals, you just can't buy any drug off the counter if it is a very detrimental drug, right? That is very specific. But here we seem to have the ability to we've got, oh my gosh, 1/5 or 1/6 of the farmers saying, I'm going to just go get something illegal, which means that there is government has to play a role. There is the need for regulation. Not everybody should be allowed to sell and buy. But on the other hand, government alone can only do such things. There is a need for education. There's a need for proper guidance. And I like what Glenn mentioned about it has to be science-based. It has to be evidence-based in the end of the day. But maybe my other colleagues in the panel would want to add on to that.
If I may, Chris, I think Dr. Chu makes some excellent points. Firstly, science and evidentiary approach to this is the foundation, absolutely. And the point I want to make very, very clear is every single product that Syngenta sells worldwide has been registered in that country under the regulatory framework that applies to the sale of chemical pesticides. So that includes toxicology information, the right dose, the right use. That is also then leads to label instructions about how to use this product properly. That also then leads to our commitment as a company, which we're tremendously proud of communicating that message to farmers directly. And we have an annual target of 8 million farmers a year to be trained directly in the right use of these products, because the right use at the right time has the yield benefits that we've talked about. Overuse absolutely is a problem. Using these products incorrectly is a problem. And that's why at Syngenta, we have a commitment to what we call product stewardship, stewarding the use of these products, ensuring that farmers understand how and when to apply them. And that process is in the DNA of this company. Because then also that's where the benefits come from. If you use it in the right way, that's how you get the yield benefits. Taking that tool from the toolbox for farmers without consultation to farmers, in the expectation, or not the expectation, without anticipating that it would have an impact on yields, food security, prices. And one of the things that concerns me the most about the research that was conducted was not only the willingness of farmers to choose illegal products, but the availability of the illegal products. Because one thing I can guarantee you, you buy a Syngenta product, what it says is in there is what's in there, right? There's no doubt about that. You buy an illegal product, you'd really have no idea what is in there. And the availability and the willingness, when put in that circumstance of having a really important tool taken away from farmers without consultation, that option being available to them, that's not one of the options that should be in the toolkit, right? That is where some seriously human health and environmental damage can be done. And that's a place I don't think any of us want to go near.
That's a very good illustration. I would like to jump on what Chris said. The basic assumption is that farmers would read it in the language of science and be motivated on that. Let me tell you, farmers are facing a lot of things, and they would not decide based on science per se, because that's not the driving force. Sustainability is the driving force, therefore it's economy. And Chris is asking, why are farmers going to opt for something illegal or unregulated? It's not because they are stupid, pardon for the French. It's just because they need to survive for the season, for the next season, because they want to keep producing food. So there's a need to translate science into the language of those who will be in front to use them. It's always the problem if we neglect that farmers would automatically adopt something that we have designed, even though it's the best design. But every time a farmer hears science, they say, oh, extra payment. Oh, more expensive. Oh, so there's also a science of reducing cost. I remember when I was at the World Food Prize, I raised this point. We are so smart that we can put farmers in the Mars next century, maybe. We should be also so smart that we can reduce the cost of technology. Because in the end of the day, farmers is alone facing the goal to produce food, but can he survive if there's so much expense on top of what he needs to do or what he needs to use?
Thanks, AD. Dr. Glenn, got a view on this?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the discussion. There's a lot of education, working with farmers, extension is very important, because for me as a farmer, also my experience is most of the farmers go to the agri stores, and they ask, I have this problem, and what's the solution? They're asking a storekeeper. So they will always give you what is available in them. They will give you a fungicide for an insect problem. They will give you a fertilizer, maybe urea for a phosphorus problem. So it's also those are the important extension services that we need to give them. So we should, I think the government should even incentivize giving some subsidy to these agricultural stores to put an extension worker there, or what I mean, because these are the doctors. You are asking a storekeeper of those are my simplest practical solutions or problems that we could see here. So what they have, they will sell it. If you have an insect problem, they will give you fungicide, whatever what they have. So if they have a fertilizer, they ask for fertilizer, they give you urea instead of complete, or they give you calcium sulfate, calcium nitrate instead of potash. So those are the practical implications, or the regulation. They should be like they should some prescription, or they should have monitor, they should trace, they should to put example what chemical they are buying, and they should be recorded, they should be traceability also. It's messy, but it might be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. The war in Ukraine, of course, has highlighted food security concerns and concerns over products which are used in agriculture everywhere. I think food security is more and more in people's minds, particularly in these days of rampant inflation almost everywhere in the world. Perhaps a question for our farmers first, and then Dr. Chu and Chris might want to chime in, but what is it that you would want? What would really help you to improve both the yield, i.e. the amount of crops you're growing, and also the nutritional value of those crops, so that people are getting better quality food in their stomachs, and then hopefully you're earning more money at the same time? What is it you need from policies and companies and others to help you?
You're asking between the two, because there will be more than that.
Yeah, but give me your wish list.
The agroecology dictates how a farmer or a farming industry would survive. When I say agroecology, it entails a priority on the farmers, meaning they should be earning. That's number one. Number two, there should be crop and value chain insurance. That's number two. Because in the absence of number two, there will be no access to capital. Capital access should be there, but no capitalist or no investor would come in if the risk is too high, because any calamity would wipe out the production. And number four, in the value chain, we should protect the front producers, because most of the time they are vulnerable. So that should be the priority. But in a free market economy, like most democratic countries, it's quite impossible. But I think we could still tweak that part. Now, Chris, you're asking, this is a wish list. This is the wish list, because if you have developed a good agroecology, farmers will just keep farming. They will be happy. Their children will jump into farming because it's a profitable operation. And then, of course, we would need inputs, we would need technology, and we can decide which technology will be out there if we have more money on our pocket. So I'm not saying that it's all about money, but we have to be realistic. The world revolves around economy. And if in the absence of agroecology, a balanced agroecology, you will see things like Sri Lanka, situation in the Philippines. When I say insurance, not just insurance. You look at the West; they have so much insurance program. They have a good ecology in the insurance industry that they can protect their truckers, their value chains, their seeds, and even a derecho will wipe the whole production, the whole mechanism. They could stand up again because you have a good insurance ecology, and that's what I mean. Farmers, you don't have to motivate farmers. They will keep on producing food, even if amazingly many Asian farmers, they keep on doing it because even though it's not profitable in many cases, it's not even efficient, but they keep doing it because they're waiting and hoping for a time that this agroecology will be established in their place. So those bigger economies, I would challenge you, countries with bigger economy, that's the goal. I mean, help develop the countries that have underdeveloped agroecology. And if you do that, you're doing us a big service, and farmers will keep on producing food.
Thanks.
I just build on that, Chris, because I think AD makes a lot of really important points. I think one of the themes that's coming out is, this is a food system, right? It's not just one single issue. And certainly from a Syngenta perspective, how we can elevate our responsibility in that food system is something we're committed to finding ways to solve some of these complex issues. But if you look at Again, I'm not a farmer, but with my co-panelists, you'll have a perspective on this. But cropping decisions, followed by financing, followed by insurance, as you talked about, AD, access to the technology that you want to help support those decisions you've made in terms of what you want to grow that particular season, which can change from season to season in the farm for farmers. The agronomic practices, which includes the use of crop protection products, but as I said, the right use at the right time at the right dose to increase yield. Technology, how can we improve innovation in terms of, even in some parts of Asia Pacific, mechanization, some of the things we take for granted I'm Australian, like a country like Australia, some of the mechanization in agriculture there that we just take for granted. How do we make that more accessible in an affordable way for smallholders in ASEAN? There are ways, but we need to get together as we are today to discuss ways that we can collaborate, because these things can be expensive. And we're talking about smallholder farmers. 80% of the food grown in Asia is grown by smallholder farmers. And what we mean by that is 1 hectare or less. I mean, it's extraordinary. So how do we make things easier for farmers who are doing such a tremendous and honourable thing in terms of growing food for us by bringing together in this food systems approach, and then connecting them to higher value markets by sustainable products, on-farm practices that have an environmental benefit, focusing on the soil, cherishing that soil fertility. What might sound quite simple, the benefits of that, from yield, from the longevity of the farm, from the sustainable outcomes, from the carbon capture, which can lead into carbon trading. So, I mean, there's so many exciting opportunities here where collectively, throughout the food systems value chain, we can not only make farming more profitable for farmers in Southeast Asia, but we can also create new business models, revenue streams that will have a huge impact on achieving the 1.5 degree warming target that's critical for the future of this planet. And being part of those solutions, if we can do something impactful there, I mean, that is hugely exciting, hugely challenging, but what a legacy that would be.
Thank you, Chris. It's a few questions coming through on the Q&A, and I'm going to take the first two of them together. And I'd like the views from all of you, please. The question is it reasonable to expect organic farming to work on a large scale, or is it just wishful thinking? Can the future of agriculture be truly fully organic going forward? Who would like to take these first? Perhaps Dr. Chu.
Yeah, thank you. I think, sometimes when we have this kinds of forum, we always seem to be dichotomous in our nature, in our discussion. It's as though on one hand, we've got the agrochemicals and so forth, and on the other hand, it's organic. But really, is life really just always dichotomous? In China, there was a 10-year study that was published in Nature that involved more than 21 million farmers who were trained how to better manage the soil. That's all that Chris mentioned: soil, water, fertilizer, and with the goal in mind, having still the yield at the end of the day being present. That study showed that if you combine these things, and as what AD mentioned, put the farmers right dead in the center of all that we are doing, the result of that study already showed that there were increased yields, despite the fact that there were actually combining other practices together with the use of chemical fertilizers, such as the use of appropriate cover crops, double cropping, combining organic fertilizers and so forth, having access, but at the same time, proper training and management. So it is not always a dichotomous nature of things. what is important is like what AD said. I really want to make sure that that message doesn't get lost, that it is the people who are right at the heart of this, the farmers themselves, that had to be the focus. And then, of course, around all that, provide them with the access, provide them with the know-how, provide them with this thing. So let's not have a forum that at the end of the day pits between one way of farming and then the alternative the other way, as though it's two dichotomous. In reality, what reality is about the fact is that it could be done, it can be done long term, but we need to focus on the fact that we have to be sustainable, we have to have high yield at the end of the day. And it's about economics, that's true.
Just be brief in adding on Dr. Chi's points, because I think I couldn't say it better. One thing I would add is focusing on outcomes. What is the outcome we are looking for? When we have conversations about chemicals versus organic, we're having an ideological discussion, okay? We should be having, as Dr. Chu just eloquently said, a discussion about what outcomes do we want. And surely all of us want safe, nutritious food, okay? Number one. From a farmer's perspective, and farmer at the centre of everything we do, from a Syngenta point of view, is high yield, higher profitability, and the knowledge that their farm can continue to produce high quality food profitably for years and years to come. And from an environmental perspective, we want less impact from agriculture in terms of contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, land clearing. They're the outcomes we want, right? So focusing on that and looking at it in the way that Dr. Chu just elaborated is a much better conversation than a should it be organic or should it be synthetic? That's the wrong question, in my opinion. The right question is, how do we build a food system that delivers these outcomes? And in my opinion, backed up by science and evidence, as we've talked about already, is critical to this discussion. The right use of the right synthetic chemistry at the right time is key to contributing to those outcomes. But it's not the only one. To be clear, I'm not saying there aren't other options. And without speaking on behalf of my panelists who are farmers, they would need to be given a whole range of options from which they can make the right decisions for them to achieve the outcomes that they are looking for.
Thanks, Chris. AD, do you agree with what Chris just said?
Yeah, I do agree. I would say my take would be, if we talk about food security, we should talk about the security of the food producers. Because once that is done, food security will follow. Farmers would love to plant, but can they make money out of it? They can survive, they can plant for the next season. Is their soil okay? They know they need to do that. But if that would mean they will be out of business to adopt certain technology, follow certain policies, that would be a challenge for them to decide. And we as farmers, we always face with this 7 days a week, 30 days a month, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So in our sleep, we have to make a decision whether we're going to use this or use that, what to access. But if the environment, again, is okay, we are secure, we know the technologies are available, like Syngenta is saying, and the economy, if we produce certain things that would sell and convert into cash, then we will be okay. We will keep producing food.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we have time for just one last question. Someone in our audience has posed this question, and I think it's a little bit unfair, but the question actually is that many farmers lack a formal education, and therefore perhaps don't understand what they're doing sometimes, and therefore it could have an adverse impact on the environment. What can we do to help improve understanding about use of chemicals or not use of chemicals, about how to better manage the land as well, so to reduce the environmental impact? Is there a role here for big business? Was it a role that government should be playing more of? Perhaps I'll ask Dr. Gregorio first to answer this one.
Yeah, very. First is, I will say the farmers are very smart people. We should not say that, even saying educate the farmer. We have to walk with the farmers because we learn a lot from them. Because they are the most, as AD mentioned, they're the wisest people because they know they're the businessman. They know which is profitable, which has the market, which is producing more, and because they have the experience, they are the one doing it. We are just giving some theories, but they are really bright people. So I think the most important is give them options, give them the list of products and the consequences of each of the products, and I think they will give the combination because the farmers are just there, and what is available in the time, because it's every stage of the crop is different, and they go to the store because they have limited money also, so they have limited option, and they could not store a large amount of products which are their choices. Sometimes they just go there because it's needed by the plant at the same time what is available. So my take there is, first, they are smart people. What is most important, give them option and empowering them by giving them the consequences of each. But my take there is, as a farmer, it's really there's the science of organic, there's the science of synthetic. We have to combine them both. I think that's the win-win approach. It's the organic will give soil nutrients, but the conventional, the synthetic, will give plants nutrients, or it will give you the synergy is always there. Thank you.
You asked Chris if there's a role for big business, and I get it, because I would qualify in this panel as being a representative of big business. I can't help but just jump in on this one. And again, agree with Dr. Gregorio. Number one, yes, there is a role for big business, and that role is a number of things. One is training and education, which is, as I mentioned, an objective that we deliver on every year. At least 8 million farmers trained on right use, safe use. Now, that's not the entirety of the world, of course, but right, you've got to, that's a significant number to continue to do that every year. Secondly, it's not just about pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. One of the most exciting things that I have been involved in recently is in what can we as a company, with our commitment to R&D and innovation and continuous improvement, do about soil health, developing products that actually encourage the microbiome within the soil. I mean, it's tremendously fascinating stuff about how plants talk to other microbes in the soil. There is a communication there that is only just being understood, not just at Syngenta, but by the scientific community. The possibilities there of how do we encourage that communication for plant robustness, for roots to be longer and stronger, therefore more resistant to pests and diseases, therefore less application of products being required. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, seeing as I work for a company that sells crop protection products. But what I'm trying to say is the breadth of our research is about crop production. How do we help crop production, and how we can encourage that unbelievably fascinating and complex communication in healthy soil, and find a way to make that even stronger, is the way we as a big business see our responsibility, which is to continuously improve the offers we can give to farmers, to train them and educate them on how to use them properly, and to try to find outcomes that grow more food and that have a better environmental impact, less emissions. And that's, to me, where the role of big business should be. And that's where it is at Syngenta.
Thank you, Chris. Dr. Chu, anything you want to drop in on the subject?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, because I saw in the Q&A someone making a note about the role of plant and plant breeding, and the companies involved in this as well. I am a plant breeder myself, and I think we have to realize the key words in all this is a proper ecology, both in the business ecology, but also biologically. You know, we are always constantly fighting in this ecological war, right? You give something better, something is going to try to push back. So therefore, there is a role for us to understand biology in general. We need better plants in the new environment, plants that are more tolerant to the vulgarities that we will be facing in the future. So there therefore is a role for those who are playing, developing new seeds, new plants, and new varieties for us to be adapting to the new environment that I had. And this is even more urgent. So the answer is truly yes, there is a role for them. But also there's a role for us to understand that eventually we are not in a static situation. What works 2-3 decades ago may not work right now. And we have to constantly be on the ground to see what's going on. Things have degraded. We have to constantly be aware of what's going on. And we have to then be part ahead of, just like in any warfare, we have to be ahead of what's going to happen. And therefore, it takes all of us to come together. And in the region, in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN, it's about all of us coming together. And it's about all of us making sure we contribute in whatever way we have in academia, listening to the people on the ground, as well as contributing. The business people have to come together to help as well. So that's my take about this whole situation. Chris, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chu. AD, I'm going to give you the final word on this webinar before I close it out today. And thank you for being with us, because you know you have a very, very hard job farming, and a particularly difficult place in the Philippines with so many adverse weather conditions having to deal with as well. For you, what do you see as the immediate future for you as a farmer in the Philippines?
Before I say thank you for having me here, and we would love to participate in many forums like this, and just a matter of inviting us, and we will bring whatever we can in the table. To the person who asked about uneducated farmers, I would say it's just the result of sacrificing education to produce food. So it's not that they lack the education, it's the choice between getting an education and surviving in an adverse environment of farming. So instead of criticizing, I would like that we should focus on empowering our farmers, encouraging them in practical ways, like the business people should come in with their investment, the insurance people would come in with their insurance systems, policymakers should come in and consult more, have more dialogues with the farmers. And in the Philippines, we are very vulnerable in a lot of things, and we do lack the insurance, the wide range of insurance program. Ours is very expensive for crop insurance, and that's why many farmers are not spending for it. Plus, of course, the economic situation that we would rather buy fertilizer and take the risk than buy an insurance policy for our crop. But in the end of the day, we don't know. Sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're not. And it's a sad state where when people think that, like many people in the Philippines, we know somebody will help us somewhere. Maybe our neighboring Asian countries, maybe the Western country that has loved us so much. But that's not really a good thing in the long run, because we should be striving to be sustainable on whatever danger we're facing. So as a farmer and speaking in this group, thank you for having me. And I don't speak for everybody, but I speak as a farmer, that I really appreciate what you're doing out there, the big companies, the economic giants, the advocacies, the academe, and we should do more. We should have more of this. We should be engaging more, and you will be surprised that farmers, a simple encouragement will go a long way for farmers. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, AD. Thank you to my panel. I'll just try and sum up what we discussed today. It's not a question of organic versus inorganic farming. It's a question of producing safe and nutritious food. It's a question of building the right ecosystem to support agricultural production, and in particular to support farmers as well. AD, you were mentioning insurance. I can tell you here at the council, we've done a lot of work on insurance and bringing insurance into parts of the region where people don't readily get it. And actually we did a recent workshop with the insurance commissioner in the Philippines on the very topic. So hopefully that insurance part of your equation will be coming to you very, very soon. But essentially, we all need to work together. We all have a great interest in improving food security, improving the nutritional value of our food, improving the welfare of farmers, and hopefully alleviating rural poverty, all whilst looking after the environment at the same time. And AD and Dr. Gregorio, I can quite assure you, when this council does more webinars on this subject, we'll always make sure the farmers' voice is heard as part of the discussion, because you guys are at the front end. And to the person who asked the question, which I thought was, and I perhaps should apologize for asking it, but to suggest that farmers lack education just because they didn't go to school, I think is wrong, because you guys working the land, you probably know a damn sight more about what's going on in the environment than any politician who's got a degree or a master's degree. So I commend you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and keep safe, keep well, keep healthy, and AD, please keep producing some great eggplants for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.